Chapter 1661. As the dark blood oozed out of Olivia and Jacqueline, the excruciating pain zapped through their bodies. Olivia was on the brink of losing herself, and Jacqueline was no less good. Jacqueline had always been arrogant her whole life, but now, she struggled to quell the urge to scream. All she could do was watch the filthy blood flowing out of her. The pain was too much to hold in, causing Olivia to shake. She tightly clutched the hem of her shirt, trying not to break the ritual. According to their plan, the bleeding was supposed to stop after a certain period. Jacqueline's bleeding showed an indication of stopping, but not Olivia's. Olivia lost more blood than Jacqueline did. She was basically sitting in a pool of dark blood. It was as though something was sucking her blood dry out of her. Olivia noticed the situation and started panicking. But she didn't dare to do anything because she wasn't the witch. Plus, she hadn't dealt with curses. What if she interrupted the ritual and ended up dying instead? Ethan shared the same thought. He wasn't a witch and knew nothing about curses. There was nothing that he could do for her either. He shifted his gaze to Alexander. The witch who cast the curse on them should know a way. Yet, Alexander had no intention of helping Olivia. He chanted a spell, trying to break Jacqueline free from the curse. And he succeeded. He sneered, "I promised to lift the curse, but I didn't specify whose. Whatever happens to Olivia has nothing to do with me." Ethan gnawed his jaw. Alexander retreated while carrying Jacqueline. "You'd better not do anything reckless. It took me 10 years to reformulate this curse. Don't touch the dark blood either. Others will die from touching it. You're useless now, Olivia Fordham. Go to hell." He clearly knew a way to break the curse, but he didn't do it for Olivia. He wanted her dead. Olivia bit her lip until it bled, trying to put up with the pain. When Ethan was to break down, the sound of the flute resounded. Olivia's bleeding promptly stopped. Alexander looked at the girl in the corner. He had watched her blow a flute before, but she wasn't using the same instrument then. He had simply assumed that she was playing music to kill time, but she turned out to be a witch like him too. The flute she was using right now seemed to be made from animal bones. As the melodious rhythm stopped the bleeding, Olivia could finally catch a breath after the experience of excruciating pain. "Kill her, hurry," Jacqueline growled, annoyed that Olivia was still alive. "We should go. I have a bad feeling about this." Alexander pulled Jacqueline to the boat. Right then, a long hoot whistled. It was an owl. Willow blew her instrument again. Olivia gritted her teeth while covering her wound. "You're never gonna escape from here." Chapter 1662. Things turned odd in a blink of an eye. Birds began flapping their wings in the woods, reptiles and insects suddenly showed up, and there were even things squirming out of the sea. Worm eels. They were a poisonous species. Jacqueline was dumbfounded by the turn of events. She had never seen something like this before. Even Alexander, a witch who was good with curses, had always thought that beast tamers were merely legends. Who knew that a little girl like Willow would be one? Compared to curses, taming beasts was a whole new level of difficulty. Alexander learned how to cast curses since young. It was a skill that took time and effort to learn. However, the beast tamer clan had always been a reclusive tribe that lived deep in the mountains. They were particularly strict in appointing their successors. With the founding of the nation, they left the mountains and mingled with the people. They had long digressed into ordinary people. Never in his wildest dreams did Alexander expect to see a beast tamer of this age. Willow's quiet demeanor rendered her presence unobtrusive. She was no better than an invisible person, which was why Alexander had let his guard down. He thought she was a mere kid who couldn't speak. Yet, the child under the moonlight appeared to be so sacred at this moment. Her hair fluttered along with the light breeze, her green eyes void of emotions. Alexander thought, "She's the chosen one." That contemptuous gaze seemed to hold the power to annihilate the whole world. At that moment, he knew that he stood no chance against her. He yelled, "Hurry, let's go." Murderous intent was brimming in Willow's eyes. She would never give Jacqueline the chance to hurt Olivia. With a shift of the rhythm, the call turned into an invisible power that broke the curse forcefully. It was like a war broke out, and only a bloodbath awaited them. Although Jacqueline was a villainess, she had only used modern methods for manipulation. She had never seen anything like this before. It didn't feel real to her. It was more appalling than in the movies. The deluge of looming reptiles was giving her goosebumps. She looked at Olivia. Don't you want to know where your mother is? 3 days was what we promised. Are you going to go back on your word? Olivia glared back. That should be my line. Ethan asked someone to bring over a medical kit and stepped forward. I'm not going to let you escape this island alive. No one knew what Jacqueline could do as long as she was alive. She had to die. Both parties no longer cared about the promise. Right now, all they wanted was each other's lives. Alexander managed to drag Jacqueline to the yacht, but the reptiles were catching up to them quickly. Right then, Jacqueline shrieked in surprise as an owl perched on her shoulder. Its claws sunk deep into her flesh, and it was aiming its beak at her eyes. Alexander quickly urged the skipper to maneuver the yacht. Although the reptiles were one step behind them, the owl was attacking her like a crazy bird. She screamed non-stop due to fear getting the best of her. Alexander was doing his best to shoo it away. Wayne and his men, who had been biding their time, were astonished by Willow's capability. She broke the curse. Is this a dream? Muttered Alan. Wayne smacked the back of Alan's head. What are you staring at? Get them. Don't let them get away. Yes, sir. Only then did Alan come back to his senses. He couldn't help it. It was so surreal that he couldn't believe his eyes. Ike dispatched a troop to go after the yacht, and Wayne hurriedly rushed to Olivia. Alan was left all alone. This has to be a dream. Where did those reptiles come from? This is way more ridiculous than the movies. Chapter 1663. Wayne's eyes frantically scanned over Olivia. Are you all right? I'm fine. Just some scratches. Jacqueline mustn't get away. Don't worry, I have people ready in the vicinity. Jacqueline was a sly fox with Alexander on her side. Olivia vowed to herself that she would capture Jacqueline even if Shayna's life was in danger. Forget about knowing Shayna's whereabouts. If Jacqueline knew that information, that would mean she and Brandon were plotting something together. If Jacqueline escaped, it was impossible for her to tell Olivia Shayna's whereabouts. The promise was a way to buy herself some time. Both parties had something plotted right from the beginning. They wanted each other dead. Now that things had turned out this way, someone had to die, and it was either Olivia or Jacqueline. Unfortunately for Jacqueline, she was wrong about someone, Wayne. Wayne was Ethan's enemy, so Jacqueline initially thought that luring Olivia to Wayne's territory might give her the upper hand, but it backfired. She had dug her own grave. The owl left a few scratches on her face and almost tore down her scalp until she finally broke free from it. Furious, she broke into strings of vulgar words, no longer the gentle and obedient woman. That motherfucker. Olivia's daughter must be a witch. It hurts so much. Alexander checked on her wounds before sighing in relief. Thank God it's nothing serious. Nothing serious. Do you know how many times I've fixed my face to look like Olivia? Jacqueline cared about her face the most. Previously, even as it could easily tick her off. She had always been putting on a show in front of the Fordham family. She might appear gentle and mild in front of them, but she drank alcohol and smoked behind their backs. Her temper was the worst. She was good at hiding her true colors. She could only be herself in front of Alexander. He was the person Jacqueline trusted yet hated the most at the same time. Since they shared a similar past, he was the only one who had seen her disgraceful side. That was why she was a fussy woman whenever he was around. It's okay, I've credited the $2 billion. Once we get out of here, we can enjoy our lives to the fullest. You have all the time in the world to fix your face. Alexander hugged her, comforting her gently as he always did. I hope so. I want Olivia's face ruined too. Stop getting in her way, Jacqueline. With her status and the power she has right now, we'll lose for sure. Besides, her daughter is a genius witch and a beast tamer. I won't be able to win against her the next time. We can't get close to all. He tried to talk some sense Jacqueline. You useless man, she barked. The ship is coming soon. We'll be fine when it comes, he reassured. As soon as he said that, the sound of propellers whirling resounded. It was a military helicopter. There was an army base on the island, so it made sense. Alexander looked up at the helicopter, wondering if it was their enemy. Then, he let out a self-mocking smile. They had nothing to do with each other. Why would the army dispatch a helicopter to catch nobodies like them? He thought he was overthinking it, so he just ordered the skipper to speed up. Suddenly, the water rose in ripples and then in waves. Now, it wasn't only the helicopter. Numerous yachts were speeding over to them. Jacqueline grabbed Alexander's shirt. "I'm scared. Relax. I'm here. Look, there's a helicopter. The army must be on a mission. It has nothing to do with us." Chapter 1664. After saying that, Alexander began to sense that something wasn't right. Those yachts and that helicopter were really coming after them. No, this can't be. This is the army base of a different country. Just who is Olivia? How could she demand their military chopper? Jacqueline had racked her brain thinking of a place, and she ended up choosing this island. But it seemed like it was a bad decision. "Don't worry, the ship that's supposed to be coming for us is on its way." Alexander tried his best to calm her down, but his voice was shaking from nervousness. He didn't have the time and tools to cast a curse to help themselves in this situation. Now, he was weaker than an ordinary person. When they finally saw the ship, the helicopter above them released fire at it. Its body was on fire, and the crew jumped off it to save themselves. The fire slowly burned the couple's hope into ashes. They were surrounded with no way out. Olivia Fordham, that bitch. All Jacqueline could do was vent her anger with words. Alexander sighed. "It's all my fault, Jacqueline. I didn't come up with a perfect plan. I didn't know that they had connections to the army. Now, we only have two choices: either we give up or jump into the sea." Wayne's ship was closing nearer and nearer to them. Jacqueline didn't have a choice. Jumping into the sea was no less different from signing a death certificate, but if she fell under Olivia's hands, Jacqueline would be tortured for life. Not only Olivia, but the Fordham family, Ethan, and Leah would also want to see her die miserably. "Am I going to die like this?" Jacqueline, who was drenched in blood, stared at the cloudy sky. It was no wonder that people said things would fall back in their rightful place. What was once stolen would be returned to the rightful owners in the end. Jacqueline had to repay the price after owing Olivia so much. "It's all my fault, Jacqueline." Alexander dipped his head. "I'm so useless. I couldn't help you." She looked at the man who was deeply in love with her. After so many years, he was the only one who had stayed by her side through thick and thin. "Alexander, you're a wonderful person. You would have led a better life if you hadn't met me." She watched the approaching ship. There was also a helicopter above them. She knew that there was no escape this time. "Sorry, but I've never loved you even once. If we ever meet again, I shall repay whatever I've done to you." Next, she jumped into the sea without a second thought. She didn't even spare him a glance before doing that. From the beginning until the end, she remained a selfish person who only thought of herself. Gone was any romance. The reluctance to admit defeat was strong in her. She had spent her whole life on this, but it ended up in a fiasco. Jacqueline thought, "Olivia Fordham, I will never return whatever I owe you. This life can only be mine." Alexander cried, "Jacqueline." He jumped off the yacht without hesitation either. News soon reached Wayne's ears. He looked at Olivia, who was receiving treatment. They jumped into the sea. "What should we do?" She stared at the sea coldly. "If we can't catch them alive, we should at least have their bodies." The couple was a ticking time bomb. They couldn't be left alive. Although killing Jacqueline this way was a punishment for her, it was better than having her alive and becoming a potential threat. Nothing could be done to amend what Jacqueline had done. "You deserve this, Jacqueline," Olivia thought. Chapter 1665. Before the medic could bandage Olivia's hand, another thunderous explosion could be heard from the sea. She had always known how vile-tempered and straightforward Wayne was. She bet that he opted to kill Jacqueline in the most convenient way possible. Staring at the flames that were soaring to the sky, Olivia had mixed feelings. Jacqueline had done so many cruel things. Killing her this way was simply an act of benevolence. Reflecting on the hardships she had endured thus far, Olivia figured that Jacqueline shouldn't have died this easily. Jacqueline was a calculating witch. Olivia nearly died so many times because of her. However, it seemed that Olivia's party didn't have a better option. Wayne's tall figure cast a shadow. "Don't worry, the chances of her surviving the sea is nil," Olivia hummed in response. Although the curse was lifted, she didn't feel happy. She still didn't know where Shayna was. How were they supposed to look for her? The only good news was that Wendell managed to rush to the island the next morning. Ethan had informed the Proctor family prior to this. Wendell was a loving man. He didn't meet other women after his wife's demise. That was also the reason that led him to excessively indulge in Alexander. Now, he finally learned the truth. His real son was swapped and had been lost for many years. When he met the tall and built man before him, he couldn't believe that it was his son. Wayne took after him, but his eyes were similar to his wife's, proud and rebellious. They didn't need a DNA test. Wendell could tell that Wayne was his son. Wayne sized Wendell up as well. "I heard that you're my father. You look like you could be carried away by the wind." Raised without parents, Wayne had grown up with a wild personality. The belief to fight back when opposed was in his blood. This hadn't changed even after he acquired a higher position in society. Wendell was so overwhelmed with joy that he didn't mind Wayne's rude remarks. He slowly strode up to Wayne. "I guess so. Come with me. A DNA test will shed light on the truth." With a hand in his pocket, Wayne appeared carefree and unrestrained. He believed that a DNA test had to be done to be certain. Staring at the man walking toward the army base, Wendell repeated the question in his head, "Is he really my son? I do notice the familiar reckless spirit in him. He's so much like her." Wendell followed Wayne. The DNA test results came out to be a 99.9% match. Overflowed with excitement and joy, Wendell rushed toward Wayne. "Son, I've finally found you. I'm so sorry for what happened all these years. You must have had it rough. It's all my fault. I failed to protect you." Wayne clearly wasn't buying that. After all, he had long passed the age of longing for a paternal figure. He grew up facing life all alone, so he didn't care much about having parents. "It's all right. I've been doing fine on my own. So, I'm your son." Wendell nodded. "Yes, I heard that the Proctor family has a marriage arrangement with the Fordham family. Am I right?" "That's correct. It was supposed to happen between that imposter and Miss Jacqueline." "What's wrong?" Wayne rubbed his chin, a mischievous smile playing on his lips. "So now, as your biological son, I should be the one fulfilling the marriage arrangement, shouldn't I?" Wendell couldn't follow. "You just have to tell me yes or no." "I suppose so." Wayne, with a triumphant smile, grabbed Wendell's collar. "Dad, please offer a preposition in my stead. I want to get married." Chapter 1666. Wendell had been frail all his life. He never imagined that his biological son would have been missing for so many years. What surprised him more was that Wayne had grown up well despite hardships. Still, there seemed to be something off about this son of his. They were father and son who had been separated for years. Now that the truth was revealed, shouldn't they be hugging each other in tears of joy? Why did Wayne show no joy in reuniting with his father but seemed interested in his identity as the son of the Proctor family, or more precisely, the marriage arrangement between the Proctor family and the Fordham family? "Son, things are a bit complicated right now. We need to take our time to discuss this thoroughly. Am I not your son?" Wayne's restless temperament was exactly the same as his mother's. There was no chance of dissuading him. There was only one thing in his head. He felt fortunate that he had run a background check on the ties between both families. Otherwise, he would have not known the existence of this marriage arrangement. "Of course, you are, as the test results have shown us. The Fordham family is going through something. For now, I don't care what it is." "Does Olivia belong to that Fordham family we're talking about?" "Yes." "Did the elders of both families decide the marriage arrangement?" "Indeed." "That's settled, then. Prepare the proposal." "I can't wait any longer," Wayne urged. Wendell could tell that Wayne was beyond impatient. If this were the Olympics, Wayne would have jumped the gun at the starting line. Every part of his body was screaming to set the plan into action. Putting that aside, aren't you curious about me? We've not seen each other for so many years. Don't you want to know how I've come this far? Asked Wendell. Wayne responded indifferently, nope. What's there to be curious about a man who's going to pass away soon? Haven't you heard that only the opposite sexes attract each other? That didn't seem to be an appropriate phrase for this situation, but now wasn't the time to quibble over it. Wendell gave another attempt to talk some sense in Wayne. But I'm curious about your life. How have you managed all these years? It must have been quite a task. Are you annoyed? Wayne huffed. I have 800 people serving me every day. If I don't like someone, I can bomb their house and wipe out their entire existence as well as their family. Who out there could make me suffer? In spite of his carefree attitude, he didn't bring up his tragic past. To him, life was made up of the past and the future. Since the past was over, there was no need to dwell on it. He focused on the future. After so many years, he had finally found a woman he was interested in. He would do anything to have her. Wendell said, you might not know much about Miss Fordham. As far as I know, she's married and has children. Yup, but she got a divorce. She's single now. What's wrong with me wanting to give her a home? Wayne filled in the missing information. Wendell could already picture the handful of quarrels over this topic. Just how did Wayne come this far with that brain? This marriage isn't only about you. It involves both families. Miss Fordham should at least agree to this. If she agrees, I won't oppose it. But if she doesn't, Wayne gritted his teeth. Then, we'll think of something to make her agree. Isn't that how it works for your generation? Parents' orders are the rules. She's bound to this marriage arrangement. If you want me to return to the Proctor family, I will only do so under the condition that Olivia becomes my wife. Otherwise, forget it. Chapter 1667. Wendell felt helpless. He was seriously down on luck. Instead of his son, he thought that he had found himself a bossy superior. It was a heartfelt reunion after 30 years of separation, and yet the first thing Wayne talked about was an announcement about his marriage rather than expressing words of concern for his family. If it were any ordinary woman, Wendell wouldn't have minded it. But the person he insisted on marrying was none other than Olivia. She was a divorced woman with 4 kids. On top of that, Olivia's ex-husband was Wendell's nephew. The divorced couple was somewhat entangled with each other too. Ethan and Wayne were both dear to him. What should he do? Wendell was at his wit's end. Ignoring Wendell's dilemma, Wayne handed him a cigarette. But Wendell refused. I quit it. Wayne lit a cigarette and squatted on the ground. Instead of a ruler of a land, he appeared more like a construction worker. Wendell massaged his forehead at that. How had his son grown up to be like this? Wayne blew out a puff of smoke. Yes or no? Give me a definite answer. Cautiously, Wendell said, I must say that it is quite a task. It won't be easy. It's not about matching social status. Even if you like a beggar, I can arrange a marriage for you right away. But she's from the Fordham family. You might not be aware of this, but they have some issues recently. Olivia's family doesn't share the same blood as the Fordhams. Besides, it's quite a mess over there. The marriage is unlikely to happen. Wendell discarded his cigarette. So, it's a no. Geez, I shouldn't have called you Dad. He walked away, leaving Wendell stunned. Had Wayne always been this carefree? Instead of reuniting with his family, he seemed more like he came to get himself a wife. And when he failed to do so, he abandoned his father. Alan explained, please don't take it to the heart, Mr. Proctor. He has always been like this. Has he been doing well? Wendell came here in a rush, so he didn't know a thing about Wayne's past. Alan shook his head. Honestly, no, he managed to come this far without any background, connections, or resources. He relied solely on his fists and wits. If he weren't lucky, he would have died hundreds of times. And please don't let his aloof attitude get to you. He grew up in a slum, where all kinds of people lived. He had to deceive to survive. It would be unfair to compare him to those well-raised rich men or even ordinary people. Wendell felt terrible to learn how much Wayne had suffered. In contrast, Alexander grew up leading a luxurious life. Yet, Wendell's very own biological son ended up like this. Does he not have adoptive parents? Alan chuckled. I think you've had life too easy that you don't know how our kind lives. We grew up with whoever was kind enough to take us in. His life was tragic. He might have yearned for parental love when he was 4, but he had to slog through those hardships on his own. You can't expect him to be a kid anymore. He's already in his 30s. Does he genuinely like Olivia? Asked Wendell. Having worked with him for so many years, we've never seen him becoming interested in a woman. She's an exception, the only exception. Making the marriage happen will be difficult, and we know that. Don't blame yourself because of this. He has always been a single-minded man. People like us never really own anything anyways, so we don't feel the pain of loss. Chapter 1668. Alan brushed it over, but it was enough to leave Wendell in shock. Wendell imagined what kind of life Wayne had led before this. Growing up in a slum where all kinds of people lived, people like them had never really owned anything anyway, so they wouldn't feel the pain of loss. Ever since his wife passed away, Wendell didn't really care much about Alexander's upbringing. Wendell was merely generous when it came to spending money on Alexander. But once he reunited with his son, he realized how much it could hurt to be a parent. If that marriage arrangement was Wayne's wish, Wendell was hell-bent on making it happen. Olivia was watching the sunset painting colors to the horizon by the seashore. Although Jacqueline was dead, Olivia didn't feel happy, not even one bit. So what if the mastermind was dead? The Fordham family was still in disarray, and no one knew where Shayna was. Olivia sighed softly. You're too young to be sighing like that. Wayne suddenly appeared next to her. He sat next to her carefreely, completely unbothered by the sand. He patted his side. Have a seat. I won't do anything to you. I just want to have a chat with you. Olivia glanced at him. She subconsciously retreated backward before taking a seat. Hey, it's the 20th century. Stop being old-fashioned, will you? He really disliked how she was avoiding him like the plague. She shook her head. Wayne, we can be friends. I can't promise you anything beyond that. Then, he suddenly leaned in closer. His presence was overwhelming. Dr. Fordham, if you didn't want my attention, you shouldn't have given me hope in the beginning. Sorry, Wayne. If Olivia had known that that mission would pique his interest in her, she wouldn't have accepted it. Not even a chance. We can try. Wayne put himself low at this point. Olivia stared at his pleading eyes. Lovesick had never been an illness that she could heal. Ethan roared, in your dreams. Liv has agreed to marry me. The men glared at each other the second they met each other. The tension thickened in the air. Wayne threatened, got a death wish. Don't forget whose territory you're on right now. It doesn't matter whose territory it is. I can beat you into a pulp. You're asking for it. Like a leopard, Wayne pounced on Ethan almost instantly, aiming a punch at Ethan's face. Ethan managed to block it, and the two got into a fight. Olivia silently gave them some space, not even trying to stop them. She even asked someone to bring her a coconut so that she could enjoy watching them fight while drinking in the lounge. Kelvin was worried. Mrs. Miller, are you not going to stop them? Why should I? A men's fight has nothing to do with women, she stated casually. Willow came running barefooted. The bells around her ankle rang briskly. When she reached the men covered in sand, they finally stopped. Ethan cooed, all right, Willow. Don't worry, I'll stop. Wayne chimed in, Willow, look at me. I'm your stepfather. She dug out a little crab, sparing them an indifferent glance before leaving. It was as if she were looking at idiots. Wayne watched her back. Is that your daughter? Ethan's fist was flying at Wayne again. Stepfather, not a chance. Olivia put down the coconut to wave at Willow. Willow, we're going to go home soon. Yes, she was going to leave the men resolving their personal grudges with their fists. Chapter 1669. Olivia and her group returned to the Fordham family. Under the management of the eldest brother, the Fordham family was functioning normally. The third brother's legs had also recovered significantly. He no longer had to pretend to be disabled and could walk freely like a normal person. Her second brother's health couldn't recover quickly in a short period, but he looked much better. David's condition had also improved significantly compared to before Olivia left. Jacqueline had almost wiped out the entire Fordham family. Seeing Olivia return, David looked concerned. "Olivia, I heard from your elder brother that you were poisoned. How are you now?" "Dad, don't worry, I'm fine now. Jacqueline must have died in the sea." David hugged Olivia and said, it's okay, I just want you to be fine." Olivia felt particularly distressed when she saw that David had aged several years in such a short time. David asked, "Has there been any news about Mom?" "Your eldest brother has found some information and is still tracking it. The Heath family asked us to return to the country to meet him. These days, Mason's identity has prevented him from showing up in public, so the Fordham family had to return home. Olivia also missed her other children." "That's fine. I believe the children will be very happy to know they have a grandfather and uncles." Therefore, the family returned home on a special plane. It was early spring in the country. After the cold winter, the earth was full of spring. New buds had sprouted on the branches, and it was the season for cherry blossoms to bloom. Olivia changed into a spring outfit, and Willow wore a light green dress and followed Olivia. Ethan was not wearing a suit for a rare occasion. Instead, he wore parent-child outfits like the mother and daughter, a light green striped shirt with white pants. He opened the car door and took Willow out. The three of them were very eye-catching as soon as they appeared. The convoy stretched from the airport to the Heath family's house, with a total of more than 10 cars, and it looked extremely impressive. As soon as they got out of the car, they heard a clear voice, "Mom." Connor came from afar, just like his name, like a little son. "Brother, slow down, wait for me." Alicia chased after Connor relentlessly. When Connor passed by Alicia, he picked her up. The family of 5 was finally reunited. Olivia held one in each hand, and Zach rubbed Olivia's face playfully. As for the oldest one, Connor, who was between a child and a teenager, he wanted to be close to his parents but felt embarrassed. Olivia took the initiative to hug Connor and said, "Thank you for taking such good care of your brothers and sisters." A light blush appeared on Connor's face. "No, it's all what I should do. Come and meet them. This is your uncle and grandpa." As soon as the Fordham family appeared, they became very close to the children. Linus said hurriedly, "Father is already waiting inside, let's go in and talk about the past." "Okay." Molly had been waiting for a long time. She said, "Olivia, you are finally back." "Aunt," Olivia called out, "you look much better." Molly said, "It's all because of your good medicine. I heard you suffered a lot on this trip." Olivia said, "It wasn't really hard work. At least I found my family, which is the biggest reward." Dad is very happy. He was so excited that he didn't sleep all night last night. He has been looking forward to your return home since early this morning. Mason was wearing formal clothes today, and his hair was combed meticulously. The moment he saw David, the calmness on his face could no longer be maintained. You are David." David looked at Mason from a distance and said, "Yes. Your mother. She has passed away. Don't worry, she never blamed you in her life. My father treated her very well and never let her suffer any injustice." These words were like a slap in Mason's face. "I'm sorry, I really didn't know she was pregnant at that time." There was an indescribable panic on Mason's old face. He wanted to explain but didn't know where to start. When his eyes fell on the other children, except for the eldest one and the fourth one, everyone else was there. "Kids, I'm sorry to have wronged you." Chapter 1670. That day, Mason and David talked alone for a long time, and no one knew what they discussed. In fact, it didn't matter. For the Fordham family, it was just one more relative. Tatiana was a little nervous. After all, there were suddenly so many descendants of the Heath family. If they were all incorporated into the Heath family, wouldn't the property belonging to her son and daughter be much less? Everyone is selfish. When it really comes to this moment, who would not consider their own interests? But the result of the discussion between David and Mason was unexpected. Even if the Fordham family did not recognize his identity, he had no intention of changing his surname to Heath. His mother married Mr. Fordham, so they would be members of the Fordham family for life and could maintain a kinship relationship with the Heath family. Although Mason felt regretful, thinking about how well Mr. Fordham treated his descendants, he had to agree and beg them to stay with the Heath family for a while to recuperate. The day after Olivia returned, she took the children to the cemetery and visited her grandmother and Jeff with Ethan. The cemetery was built in the mountains. Some peach and pear trees on the mountain were in bloom, with branches full of fresh green. There was more moss in front of Jeff's grave. Olivia put down the bouquet of flowers, knelt in front of the grave, and chatted for a long time. She wanted to tell Jeff that she had finally found her family and identified the mastermind behind the incident. "Dad, my only regret is that I can't see her and bring her here to kowtow and apologize in front of your tombstone." "Dad, don't worry, your daughter has grown up, and I can protect others too." Ethan knelt beside her, lit a cigarette for Jeff, and placed it on the tombstone. "Dad, I'm sorry for failing to live up to your expectations. From now on, I swear to God that I will never hurt Liv again." The other children also came over to talk to Jeff. Zach was holding a wooden sword in his hand. "Grandpa, I received the gift you gave me. I like it very much. There are also many handmade toys that my mother has collected for me. Whenever I see them, I will think that they were made by you." Alicia also said obediently, "Mom said that Grandpa's biggest regret is that he didn't see us being born. Now we have grown up. Grandpa, do you see us in heaven?" A flute sounded in the distance. Willow stood on the hillside, playing the flute towards the distance, using the sound of the flute to express her grief. At this time, Olivia received a call. It was an exhibition invitation. He had promised to help her eliminate the threat, and it took Warren a long time to find Deborah's lair. This was a pleasant surprise for Olivia. There had been no news about Deborah since she escaped, and it was very likely that she was with Brandon. Maybe she could find her mother's whereabouts through this clue. Olivia immediately asked about the situation over there. To her surprise, Deborah had escaped to an island very close to Lewis's base. Was this a coincidence or an accident? After Warren confirmed it, it was just as Olivia expected. Deborah and Brandon were together, and there was also a blind woman who looked a bit like Olivia. Olivia quickly calmed Warren down and asked him to provide precise coordinates and not to act rashly. She would come over immediately. If the Heath and Fordham families knew about this, neither would sit idly by. David even dragged his sick body to save his wife. Brandon was originally Lewis's most proud disciple, so Olivia was still a little afraid of him. "We split up into two groups. I have to go find Master first. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win every battle.